Welcome to Beyond the Circus. This is Dale Hummel, along with co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello, hello, hello.
Ryan, it's been a while since we've recorded a Beyond the Circus.
Since the Capitol riot, yeah, it's been a little bit.
Well, today is good. I'm excited, personally excited today, because I take a strong interest in what's going on the southern border, and we're going to hear directly what's going on from the southern border. And I think this is not going to be a politically biased Beyond the Circus, even though Ryan and I are obviously very conservative. We're openly conservative and have opinions. But today is hearing from a person that has been in the trenches the past 19 plus years as a Border Patrol agent. We have with us today Chris Cabrera. Chris has served 4 years in the U.S. Army. Post serving the military, Chris then joined the Border Patrol in 2001. Chris has been stationed in McAllen, Texas, with his first 6 years in the Marine Operations Unit of the Border Patrol, and is currently serving as a vice president of the Border Patrol Council. Chris, I cannot think of a better way for us to gain perspective on the situation at the border than bringing you in and a question and answer with Ryan and I. We greatly, greatly appreciate you coming aboard.
No, and I appreciate you guys having me. I really do.
Let's jump right in. And I want to jump in. Our vice president came out and mentioned she wasn't willing to go to the border, or wasn't planning on it, or hasn't because of COVID concerns. Have you heard anything about that, or what's the situation there?
Yeah, I've heard that, and to me, I think it's nonsense. I mean, we're down here with COVID concerns. We're working every day with COVID concerns, and on top of that, I really don't buy that excuse when you have the holding facilities that we have here are hundreds of times over capacity. When you have a space designed for, say, 50 to 80 people, and you have 600 shoved in there, when they're having to sleep back to back on their shoulders on their sides because there's not enough room for them to lay on their back, that doesn't hold water for me if you're concerned with COVID. Not to mention, we're releasing people into the country that have tested positive or have been around someone who's tested positive and should be quarantined, and yet we're releasing them into the country. To me, that just doesn't add up, and I got to call BS on that one.
Well, the whole thing of it is like, first off, she's been vaccinated, and she just listened to her boyfriend, Dr. Fauci, and wear 3 masks. I think she'd be fine.
Our agents are in there. Our guys are wearing PPE, whether it be N95 mask, and they're fine. Granted, we have had people come up positive with it. I think the thing is as a leader, you should never ask your people to do something that you're unwilling to do. And I think that's what we're looking at here.
Well, Chris, common sense tells me that if we're that overcrowded in there's no question there's going to be positive cases, and it's probably a breeding ground for COVID.
There are a lot of positive tests, whether it be with the agents or with those we detain. And, 2 things there. One, the reason we're overcrowded is not because Border Patrol is not getting the work done. We're getting it done. We're completing the processing within the allotted time, under the allotted time. However, the next level, HHS and ICE, they're not able to keep up, so they don't have facilities to house these people. Border Patrol is the only organization that doesn't have a no vacancy sign. So when things start to fill up at HHS or some of these shelters, they just leave them in our custody. So that's why we're so far over capacity, babysitting, and that's not our job yet. We're stuck doing it. And, the system is broken way above us. On top of that, when it's time to release people, I'll give you for instance. We had a week or so ago, just for the sake of round numbers, we had 300 kids. I say 7 kids is 17 and under that we were moving out, and they were going to put them in a different facility. So they tested all 300. ICE tested them, and 30 of them came up positive. So granted, these 300 were together for the last few days. They're in the same sleeping quarters. They were together, lined up front to back, and then they tested them. And now 30 of them test positive. So they moved those off to one side of the room, and then the other 270 to the other side of the room. So the 30 that tested positive are going to stay and get quarantined. But the other 270 who may be carrying the virus, it just hasn't presented itself yet, are leaving. And if you were to come into the country or even try and go to a doctor's office and they said, hey, have you been in contact with anybody who has COVID in the last 14 days? Yes, I have. Okay, you got to go. But here, it just seems different rules apply. and it doesn't make any sense.
Even when we're trying to go in and out of the country, it's pretty strict coming back in. I believe a COVID test within 3 days, and in many countries we're not even allowed to be in. But here there appears to be no rules applying whatsoever.
Not only that, in order to come in, you have to not only show a positive COVID or a negative COVID test, excuse me. You also have to show the ability to quarantine, have the means to quarantine yourself if you were to come up positive here in our country. I have a neighbor that he vacations down there. Well, I'd say vacations. He lives there 6 months out of the year. And he called me the other day and asked me, hey, how do I come back in? Do I just, what's the process? And I told him, and we joked about it. And I told him, hey, why don't you just swim across? You'll be easier for you. And they'll probably give you a ride to the house. You won't even need to call a cab. So, that's the thing is right now it's easier and more beneficial to do things the illegal way, crossing the river, than it is to do it the legal way. And it's kind of the exact opposite of how our system's supposed to work.
It makes total sense. It's easier to do it the legal way than the legal and correct way. Yeah, that's great.
And Chris, I'm guessing with that level of overcrowding, and you're talking about separating 30 of them away from others that they've already been exposed, it's impossible to quarantine like we would in other places of the country at this point.
Exactly. It's impossible to do it. And we get a lot of restrictions placed on us as far as, well, certain states, lockdowns, this, that, and the other. But it just seems like these rules don't apply if you're coming in from another country illegally. If you're doing it the right way, there's a problem. But if you're trying to do it the wrong way, there seems to be a big issue. And that's, it's insane, especially if there's so much talk about, 2 weeks to flatten the curve and wear your mask and mask save lives and all this stuff. And then you turn right around, and is it that these people are immune, or they're not deserving the type of medical care? Or, I don't understand what their rationalization would, that these rules, they should apply to everyone coming in the country legally, illegally. It just shouldn't apply to certain people, just piecemeal.
Well, I'm going to take this a little bit different direction and maybe get your insight. And I apologize. I know all I get is what I hear on the news, and depending on which news channel I go to, I'm getting a completely different perspective on what's going on at the border. Let's talk a little bit. Is the wall present there at McAllen, or has the wall made it that far?
The wall's been here for quite some time. I think since Obama days, maybe even towards the end of the Bush days, they started it, and then this past year we had a bunch of it pop up, and the wall is a wonderful thing, but by no means is it a be all end all. It's going to solve our problems. We can send everybody home because the wall's going to do the job, like that fence in Jurassic Park. It's not that, but what it is it's a funnel. It's like the hammer in your toolbox. It's not the only tool, but it's a pretty darn important one. So what it does is it keeps people, it funnels them where we're going to play this game. They're not going to play it in a neighborhood. They're not going to play it in a busy area. We're going to funnel them so that they're going to play it where we dictate we play it, in an open field, in an open piece of farmland. So it's safer for us, safer for them, and it's safer for the community. In other parts, it's kind of like a hurdle. We know that if we have a 21-foot wall, they're going to come with a 22-foot ladder. We know that. But as opposed to them running over the levee from the time they hit the riverbank to the time they disappear in the city, it's less than 30 seconds. If we have that wall up and paired with a camera system and agents, then it gives us time to get over there, get in position. By the time they cross that wall, we have somebody in place. So it is very beneficial. It works extremely well. Anybody who doesn't believe in that, I would challenge them to just take the front door off their house. And, that's kind of what it's like. It's a means of security. It's not, it's not that it's going to stop a determined person from coming through, but it is a deterrent, and it works very well.
Excellent, Chris. And I would say that I'm just guessing here, with the number of people coming across the border and a given number of agents, and the wall not being complete, all of this is compounding on top of itself. Would it be safe to say that as a Border Patrol agent, or the Border Patrol in general, you're having a more difficult time apprehending everybody that's coming across?
Yeah, most definitely. Everything that comes across, it's done through the cartels. The cartels control that river, or further west, the fence area. They control everything that comes across, whether they're bringing people themselves or you're paying a tax to them, but they decide who's going, when they're going, what time, what groups. So they'll send people groups of, and I'm not exaggerating here, 70 plus in 3 different areas within a quarter mile of each other, knowing that the agents are going to have to go over there and deal with these 70 plus people turning themselves in, wanting asylum. And then in the meantime, there's another 2 or 3 groups of people that are coming over the wall with ladders and running from us. So there's no way for us to make sure this group of people is safe and secure and chase the other group. And then further on down the road, you have another vehicle either loading up with people or drugs at a time where we have 40 to 50% of our manpower in the station processing anyway. So we're already shorthanded in the field. And then they're hitting us with all these groups at the same time, some that are turning themselves in, some that are running, and some that are really running. They know the way our system works. They know how many agents we have in the field, when they're in the field, where they're at, and they're taking advantage of it. And for some reason, we're letting them.
My question is from the time that Biden took office, in your opinion, what has brought about this dramatic change? There's always been a crisis at the border. I mean, I'm not saying Trump didn't do a good job and that walls don't work and stuff like that, but what has made this drastic change in the past few months that has just got it even crazier than before?
The difference between early January and late January is policy and the lack thereof. We had the Remain in Mexico policy coupled with Title 42, which allowed us to expel people from the United States into Mexico, regardless of nationality. And when that went into effect, everybody that came, no matter who they were, man, woman, child, family group, single adult, whatever, everybody went back to Mexico. So in turn, people stopped coming. It's not that we sent everybody. We did send everybody back, but the numbers drastically reduced because they knew they were going back no matter what.
Right.
So now we still had the regular traffic, the runners. So people were still running, and we were getting more drug apprehensions, more smuggling cases, the real work. And then when President Biden came in, and don't get me wrong, it's his ball game. It's his. He won the election. He's free to do whatever he wants. He's free to put in place or remove it, whatever policy he wants. But at the same time, he holds responsibility for it. He took these policies out of play and said, okay, there's no more Remain in Mexico policy. So the floodgates open. And then they came back and said, wait a minute. We got to have some Remain in Mexico policy. And Mexico said, yeah, you got to have some, but not all. It's not going back to how it was. And so they stopped taking younger children, whether it be unaccompanied children or younger children that are coming with a family group. So if a mother came across with, say, a 6 or a 7-year-old, maybe say a 6-year-old, then they couldn't go back to Mexico because it was unsafe for that little kid. But if a mother came across with, say, a 7 or 8-year-old, well, whatever that magic number is, say it's 8 years old, then that mother and 8-year-old were going back to Mexico. So what started happening is the mother would get smuggled into the country ahead of time and get set up somewhere, say in Michigan. And then a month later, we see this 8-year-old crossing the river by themselves. And, hey, where are you going? Well, I'm going to see my mom. My mom's in Michigan. So they know that if the kid comes by themselves, the kid gets to go. So that's what we're seeing these younger kids crossing and the parents are already here. And unfortunately, we're giving these kids back to the parent, which to me is insane when you have a kid riding on top of a train for 3 countries and we're going to give them back to you at the end of the day. You can't leave your kid here in front of the Walmart parking lot in the air-conditioned car for 5 minutes while you go get milk. But they can send this kid on a journey across countries and get them back at the end of the day. And I've seen kids out there by themselves, and it's heartbreaking. And unfortunately, I've recovered bodies of children that haven't made the journey, or seen 13-year-old girls that just won't speak. All they can do is cry because whatever happened to them in Mexico or along the journey. And how many of these kids don't make it? And by having this false hope for them, with this beacon of light saying, hey, risk everything, risk your life, send your 12-year-old daughter over with birth control pills because we know she's going to get raped, but send her over anyway because we'll let you stay if you do, then this is going to continue to happen. And by not coming down, by the administration not coming down and seeing this, it's going to continue to happen, and more kids are going to lose their life, more women are going to get violated, more young boys are going to get violated, and people get killed along the way. And it's a dangerous, dangerous world, and we're encouraging this type of behavior.
Chris, that's sad. And you hear about this, but coming from you and just this is what's happening, it seems so simple that policy is encouraging some of these terrible things. I'm not saying there's a perfect policy we can put in place and make everything great, but it appears that we've gone a direction that's not good.
One of the things I was telling somebody the other day, it's like and it just so happened the weekend before I had a clogged sink, right? And so I had to take the pipes out so that I could snake that drain and see what was the deal. And it's just like that. If you have a policy in place, it's holding all that water back. So if you're going to remove that policy, you got to have something there to catch it. You just can't remove it. You know, like when I took all those pipes out, if I didn't have a bucket there, I'd have a big flood in my kitchen. And that's what happened is they just took these pipes out, didn't have anything in play, no towels, no nothing, and just big old mess. And then they're like, oh, well, what do we do? Well, it's not our fault. Somebody else's fault. No, it's exactly your fault. You're entitled to do it, but you got to answer for it. You got to put something in place to keep this flow back, because right now it's just a mess. And unfortunately, these kids are the victim of both sides, Republican and Democrat, playing politics. And if they want to fix this policy, they all need to get in a room, take off their partisan hats, sit there and solve the problem. And I would say just put pictures of these kids all around the room, make them look at these kids' faces while they're there trying to figure this out, because this is way above politics. This human lives are at stake. I
could go a step further and put those kids in the room with them.
Yeah.
Let them look at them. Let them meet those kids. Mm-hmm. I'm afraid they're not willing to do it.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're not. I mean, the leaders aren't even willing to come down here. And then when Congress and the Senate, when they come down here, they come separately. You know, well, why not come together? I mean, that just shows you where we're at. It's this gang mentality, this red versus blue, and I'm against whatever you say just because you said it. It makes no sense to me. It's like these folks don't have minds of their own. We might as well just have, Mitch McConnell and Nancy Pelosi, the only two people in Congress and the Senate, because they're the ones, it's just two people at the top that are deciding how everybody votes, and it just doesn't make any sense.
It is terrible. You brought up the tax, or the cartel putting a tax on these. I hear about the wristbands these people are coming across with sometimes. And I think you alluded to the fact that the drug cartel are controlling that edge of the border. So do they essentially have control of who is going to come across the border? And would that be more, I guess, are we encouraging and allowing them to profit from it with the policies in place?
They're going to profit off it regardless. Okay. We're making it more lucrative for them. And you can tell just by the wristbands, when they've gotten to a point where they just can't keep track of bodies, where they got to put wristbands on you like you're going into a crowded nightclub. I mean, that tells you all you need to know, that, hey, yellow wristbands are good, blue, no, they haven't paid, or whatever the system is. When it's gotten that bad, that tells you there's a real problem. And that's what I think these folks really need to look at, is these guys are making hundreds of millions of dollars. It's more lucrative to smuggle people into the country than it is drugs.
That's incredible. So if I'm from Central America or Mexico and want to come across, before I get across, more than likely I'm going to have to pay the cartel something. Is that accurate or no?
Usually the smuggling fee depends on what country you're from. For instance, Hondurans, Guatemalans, more Central America, they're paying between 7,000 and 10,000. Brazilians pay 10 to 15. And then when they get to the river, it's pretty much 1,000 to 1,500 to actually just cross the river by itself. Not to mention your smuggling fee the whole way. And make no mistake, it's not just Central and South Americans that we see. We see some from Romania. We see quite a few from Romania. We've been seeing a lot from China, from India, from Pakistan, you name it. I mean, it's Sri Lanka. They're all coming through somewhere on the southern border, and it's for no other reason than because they can. They know that right now is the time to do it. And any presidential election usually brings some type of surge, whether it's before or after. But I've never seen anything like this.
Chris, I guess another question I have for you is, if Biden or Camel Toe or whoever came down there, what would you tell them? Like, if you could get them to implement one thing that would help the most right now with the current situation, what do you think that would be?
I think the important thing to do would be, put it back to how it was under the Trump administration. As much as that's going to hurt their pride, put it back that way, and feel free to replace it when you have something to replace it. But don't pull it out without having something in place. And whether they like the man or not, the policies of the last administration, they were working. They were working. Was it 100%? No, but it was pretty darn good. And I've seen it. It was very manageable from the Border Patrol standpoint. Somebody asked me the other day, how many Border Patrol agents do you need to secure this border? I said, we have them all. We just got to get them out of the damn office and quit doing babysitting duties. And you put us out here and we'll secure it. But you got to give us. You got to just let us do our job. We're probably the only union you're ever going to find that's just begging for work. We want more work. Just give us the work. We'll do it. But for some reason, it's not allowed. It's I guess it's not woke enough. I don't know. I don't know what the problem is, but for some reason they won't see it.
That's hard for me to even comprehend, Chris. And I don't even know. I don't know how you can be in that area, in that position that you're in, as frustrated as you're in, and yet the politicians still aren't willing to listen, or they don't appear to be willing to listen. I guess I'm going to take it another direction yet. So let's say we know when the children are coming across the border, we're for the most part obligated to house, take care of them as best we can. It sounds like, because it is so incredibly overcrowded, that's almost impossible to do. What happens with that? Let's say a 30-year-old male comes across the border, no ID, nothing, claims political asylum. What happens to that person next?
Well, that person, I mean, unless something major happened, most likely those people are still amenable to the Remain in Mexico policy. So those folks are still going back.
Okay.
But those are also the ones that aren't turning themselves in. Those are the ones that are running. And since we have so many of these others, these men, women, and children that are turning themselves in, whether as a family unit or kids by themselves, we're so occupied with them that we don't have the manpower to go after those single adult males that are running from us.
So if they get caught, they're sent back to Mexico or across the border. What's going to prevent them from coming across again until they can make it through?
Nothing at all. And I caught the same lady twice in the same day not too long ago.
There is no incentive to not come back across. Why not? We're just going to send you back and try again.
Yep. And then if you do it a third time, well, hey, guess what? We're sending you back again and try again tomorrow.
And obviously that's what they're doing until they make it, assumably.
Yeah. And eventually they will make it, because we are so, I can't say we're understaffed, but we're not properly staffed. We don't have the people in the right places. And it's not on Border Patrol management. It's from above that put us in this predicament. We're doing other people's jobs because they're not doing theirs.
So if they come across with a younger child in a family unit, the entire family gets to stay.
Yeah. So I don't know the age number. I mean, it's changed. So it's been 6, it's been 7, it's been 9, it's been 11. It's changed multiple times. But say, just for the sake of argument, say the number is 8. If 8's the magic number, anybody 8 and above goes back, and anybody 7 and under gets to stay, then you're going to see those people turning themselves in they're going to have a 7-year-old with them. Whether they have a 14, 15 to 16-year-old, they're going to have one little one so they get past. And the ones that we're going to see traveling alone, the kids that we're going to see by themselves are going to be the 8 and up, because they know that the parent's already here. And if they get caught with the parent, they're both going back.
That adds a lot of clarity. And how do we even know if that child, let's say, is 7 or less, if that's the number, even belongs to that family unit?
Yeah, exactly. And how do we know, for instance, that child is actually 7 or under? Because we're getting a photocopy of a birth certificate, and then a lot of times we do have people that come with, like we had a guy the other day that he was with his 5-year-old daughter, and hey, what's her birthday? Oh, I don't know. Birthday. What's her middle name? I don't know. Come on, man. So we had to put him aside so that they could do some more questioning on him, because what's to say that really is his child? And is it safe to send that guy or that little girl with that guy? We see that all the time. And it's just, there's just that unknown. And on top of that, there's so many that we're catching. 2 weeks ago, my shift, just on my shift, just in my location, not the entire area, just my location, we had 350 people turn themselves in. The next day, we had 750 in that same spot. And that's just one piece of the entire southwest border. We had a 3,100 day where in one 24-hour period, we had 3,100 people that turned themselves in. It's insane.
And most of these people that are turning themselves in because of the new policy will get released into the United States, is what I'm taking it as.
Most of them. Some of them will go back for under the the Remain in Mexico policy, but most of them, they've already figured it out. They already know how to get around it, and they're going to take advantage of that. The other scary part is, we have at best a 50% apprehension rate. So 50% of what comes across gets away. And if you look at those numbers, there's huge numbers out there right now. We're getting tons of people are getting away from us. And then traditionally 30% of the people we catch have some type of criminal history in the United States. So once we catch those guys, they're going to do some time somewhere, but that's another 30% that's got away with criminal histories that, we don't know. Are you, we see a lot of sex offenders. We see, domestic assault, not victims, but I guess criminals that have assaulted their spouse. So we see a lot of that we catch people. So there's a lot of, not everybody coming in is looking to work. Some people are just bad people.
And that's hard to sort out. Obviously, we have the bad ones coming across, and I think we have legitimately people that want to better their lives, that you have sympathy for and you want to help in some manner. But it sounds near impossible to sort all that out under the confusion with lack of policy, the overcrowding, everything that's happening right now. It's nearly impossible. Yeah,
and I think what people need to understand is the next county over from us it's called Starr County. A 97% Hispanic population, 97%. That's huge. They came within a couple hundred votes of becoming a Republican county. And I had a reporter call me and ask me, well, is it because of all the Border Patrol agents that work or that live out there? And I said, there's very few Border Patrol agents that live out there. Most of them live in our county and drive to work in that county. So there's very few. So it's not because the Border Patrol agents that are there. It's people that are there that have lived there for years and years and years. And there's families that go back generations that have lived on the same plot of land. And they're just tired of it. They're tired of people coming, trampling their land, breaking in. And granted, it's not everybody. But when you get your house broken into or your grandfather gets beat up because he's out there, sitting on the porch and somebody wants something from him, and it happens. Drug smugglers coming through, running people off the road, and people are just tired of the nonsense down there. And little by little, it's switching. People are waking up saying, hey, this is not how it's supposed to be. And this is a great country to be in. I mean, it's one of the few countries on the face of the earth where you can come in with nothing and remake yourself into a millionaire. But there's rules, there's laws, there's ways to do it. You just can't come in and take. And unfortunately, we're seeing more of the take instead of the hard work. And the hard work is falling by the wayside. And that's a bad direction. And even though a lot of people see us, I guess, up in D.C. as Hispanic, hey, you're Hispanic, you're supposed to be a Democrat. I'm not supposed to be anything. But I think more and more Hispanics are waking up and saying, hey, you know what, what's going across on this border is just not right. It's dangerous to our country, whether it be physical danger or danger of disease or what's coming through, and we need to protect it.
Chris, I'm amazed by some of this information that you're giving us, and there are things that you assume, and obviously Ryan and I aren't there at the border, and we're gathering a lot of our information through the media. But the fact that this is happening at this level is I mean, I guess I assumed it was, but hearing it come from you when you're right there in the trenches every day, it's appalling. I can't even put it into words where I'm at with this, and we seem to have so little concern from the political avenue or our politicians to try to get a fix for this, and I don't see something changing anytime soon. With that said, you've had almost 2 decades there with Border Patrol, and you talked about during the Trump administration, things may not have been perfect, but they were much better than they are now. Do you feel at that time, if you had the wall completed under the policies that were in place during the Trump administration, with the number of Border Patrol that you have, could you do an effective job of controlling the border?
Yeah, I think we could, most definitely. First off, that 2 decades, man, that just woke me up right there. That's a long time. But I think with the wall being completed would be great, would be phenomenal. Even the parts that they were working on prior to stopping work this last time. I know a landowner down here that they left open this big 40-foot chunk right behind his business. And so where do you think all the traffic ends up every night at midnight? In his business. And I think if anything, at least fix what you started, finish what you started. And then with the policies, I think you putting our agents out there on the ground, whether the wall is complete or completed what's already started. That's all we need out there, and just letting our men and women go to work. And I think one of the things that really bugs me is that with this whole defund this and defund that, and you guys are racist because you're Border Patrol agents and it's racist laws. And the silly part is it's coming from people in Congress who are the only ones who have the ability to change that law. And as far as we're concerned, we have a duty to uphold these laws. So if they don't like these laws, then change them. But until you change them, we got to go by it. And if you give us the means to do so, which is pretty much cost neutral, just let us go back to work. We're good. We'll get it done. We'll make you proud. But for some reason, they don't want to do that. I don't know what the reasoning is behind it, but for some reason, it's the political will is just not there.
So from your position, it appears as though they don't necessarily want this to change.
No,
at the moment.
And you've heard about it for years. You've heard about immigration reform. Let's do immigration reform. Well, you can't do immigration reform without securing that border first. But everybody talks about it, but nobody does it. They talked about abolishing ICE and defunding this and defunding that, but they won't take a step to do it. It's just rhetoric. It's just talk. It's like a chihuahua that barks a lot, but it's really not going to do anything. It's really not going to bite. And that's what it is. It's all bark and no bite.
I think one of the most frustrating things for me, you were talking about earlier that a lot of the population down there, they just assume that you're supposed to be Democrat because of whatever race or ethnicity you are. A lot of people think that I'm supposed to be Democrat because I'm gay. I get all that, but I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, independent. I think one of the most frustrating things about politics and elections for me is that no matter who wins, and it's that whether it's at the county level all the way up to President of the United States, whoever there was before you, maybe everything they didn't do was great, but some of the things they did worked. Why is it that we have this, I don't know what you call it, but why is it that whoever gets elected, the first thing that they think that they have to do is just get rid of everything the person in front of them that was in that office before them did, whether it worked or didn't. And a lot of the times, just like you're saying, when they first get elected into office, they don't have anything to replace it, but we're still just going to yank all of this out.
Yeah.
Because that person was a Republican or that person was a Democrat and I'm the opposite. So we're getting rid of all of that shit that he did or she did, whether it was right, wrong, or indifferent. But I don't know what I'm going to do about it yet. But I know I'm going to get rid of that first.
Yeah, and it makes no sense because I like you said, some of it worked, some of it didn't, and if every 4 years we're going to reinvent the country, we're never going to get anywhere. And I think most people are towards the center somewhere. You may be a little more right than me or a little farther left than me, but I think most of us kind of balance around that center line. And hey, I'm conservative on a couple of things and a little liberal on a couple of things, but I think most people are generally center. But now you have some factions that are just going way, way, way to one side, and it just makes no sense. It's not only is it not productive, it's counterproductive, and we seem to be going backwards.
It seems crazy. I have a question. You talked about that business owner. I don't know if it's a rancher that wall. There's a 40-foot section that wasn't completed, and it's kind of funneling everybody through there, or they're going to go through the easiest point. Does that rancher or that business person's property, I'm assuming there's a barrier between their property and the actual border, or does their property run all the way to the border?
Well,
technically,
the way you have the border wall in that section, it's about a mile away, right?
Okay.
From the wall to the border. But it's also there's a ditch that runs close to from the river all the way up, and it's a very heavily traveled area because that ditch kind of it shields you from view of some of our cameras, or at least most of the time it does. Well, once you go over that levee, and that levee is not even it's sloped now because they were using it to bring the big trucks through to do the construction work. But so there's nothing between him and the wall, which is, it's right there, right behind his property. And it's a bar. It's one of the oldest townships, if not the oldest township in the state of Texas. And the bar is kind of like an outdoor theme. So it's just kind of like a roof with chairs, and stage and a little bar area and some bathrooms. So every day when he comes in to check on his property, there's people in there. And this is an older guy that, he has issues where he goes, he's got a lot of doctor's appointments and stuff, but this is how he feeds his family. He goes in every morning and half the time there's somebody in there scaring the crap out of him, and he doesn't need that stuff. And they have failed that man. The country has failed that man right there.
I'm assuming those that have the means to get further away from the border or just pick up and move have already done so. Some cannot, like it sounds like this gentleman.
Well, and you got to think that I was talking to a reporter from Fox the other day, and I said, one thing you got to look at is we were down right at the river looking at the water, and I said, one thing is missing from here is, I said, you name another waterway, and the Rio Grande is a pretty river. I said, you name me another waterway in the United States that doesn't have $1 million homes. And I said, go ahead, I'll wait, because every waterway I've ever seen, whether it's a lake or a river, has $1 million homes, except for this. And that speaks volumes. Why not?
I've never thought of it that way, but you're exactly 100% right. And that had never crossed my mind before.
Yeah. And there's a reason for that it's dangerous. You can sit on our side at night and you can hear the fighting on the Mexican side. Granted, is it, a war zone 24/7? No, but there are times where especially when I was working on the boat patrol, we would sit there and we would hear gunshots and we would just jump in and, hey, let's get out of here. And then after a while, we would we hear them, but we don't see anything. So we'll just stay here, and just kind of got numb to it. But we would see the cartels duking it out with each other or with the military a few times a week out there. And you can still hear the gunfire. You can see the tire fires that they place for roadblocks. It's not a safe place. It's definitely not a place that I go.
Would you say that the military on the south of the border has control, or the cartel at this point?
I think the cartel has control, but the military has come a long way. The military has come a long way, but then again, they don't have that. I don't think their government's serious about it down there. There's too much in the way of bribes. Was it a couple of years ago that El Chapo's son got caught over there in a massive military raid, and then the cartel, the Sinaloa cartel, just started shooting up everything and moving in, and finally they made an agreement to let this guy go, so that these guys don't tear stuff up. And that had to be a big slap in the face to the military. But, it's what it was. Is there's so many, they're so well equipped. And here you got organizations, several different organizations that just have unlimited resources, the deepest pockets, and no budget constraints or bureaucratic red tape like every other government organization. And those cartels can just do whatever they want, whenever they want. And it's, you can either take the silver or take the lead. They're going to do what they want no matter what. And it's just how you want to do with it on your end. Do you want to take the bribe or do you want to die?
And under those rules, the cartel is going to win every time.
Yeah. And, that's the thing is, make no mistake, they owe us no allegiance. If they want to bring a really, really bad person into the country, they don't care what their plans are for our country. As long as they're getting paid, they're going to move them.
That's frightening. And you talk about a lot coming up from other parts of the world. And if somebody wants to do harm to our country right now, it appears to be as easy to get across that border now than maybe it has been since you've been working there.
Yeah, it is. And, I always, two things. One, I always hear is like, well, we have homegrown extremists. Yeah, we do. We do. There's no denying that, but that doesn't mean we need to import any more. And the other thing, I heard some news reporter the other day saying, well, it was just two people on the watch list. Well, how many do you want? Because, it only takes one. San Bernardino was two people, a husband and a wife. Two is two, and that's two that we know about. So it doesn't matter if it's 1, 2, or 10. It should be 0.
It is frightening. Is there anything, and I apologize for keeping you on here longer than maybe what you have time for, Chris, but just so many questions that I was unclear on, and you're giving a lot of clarity to these. And when we talk about there in McAllen, Texas, has the demographics, the people living in that area, what's their, I'm assuming they're frustrated, they're tired of it. Are they leaving? Are they staying? What are they doing?
I think a lot of folks, it's kind of like, we've just gotten accustomed to it. And I think the biggest thing people need to understand is we don't really have a problem down here. As Border Patrol, we see the problem, but it's kind of like a parade. We're on, as far as the community goes, we're on the side of the road watching it go by, because very few people that I catch are staying here in the Rio Grande Valley. They're going to points north. People that are getting smuggled in, the closest they're going is Houston. I mean, everybody's going up north, New York, you name it, Montana, California, Atlanta, wherever, everywhere but here. And as far as the drugs that come through, we get a lot of heroin that comes through and a lot of meth, but we don't have a meth problem down here. We don't have a heroin problem down here. So these problems aren't staying here. They're going to the rest of the country where everybody else is at. So it may seem like a border problem. It is really not. It's more of a problem for you guys, more so than us. And people don't want to believe that. But you look at Ohio, the opioid crisis that they're having up there. I mean, it's unreal, the amount of opioids that are there. Where do you think they came from? Where do you think they passed through? They came through here, and they're going up there to their part of town, not mine. So people need to wake up and realize that.
And right now, it's almost like a green light. I'm assuming you're stopping people coming across the traffickers with everything, anything and everything.
That, and I mean, what's really concerning is the trafficking of kids, whether young girls or what. And I mean, that's scary. That's a very scary thing. I mean, these kids are in so much danger, whether it be on our side or between us and their home country. Because, let's face it, if you're a 7-year-old girl traveling with a bunch of other young kids and preteens, maybe even some teenagers, and a grown man or a group of men want to take you, who's going to stop them? There's nothing you can do about it. They're just going to take you. And it's unfortunate, but that stuff happens. And then, riding that train, we hear stories all the time of kids falling off that train and going under it. And, it's very sad to think that these things could happen, but they do happen. But people just want to just be deaf, dumb, and blind to it.
Well, Chris, I guess to me, that's the most heart-wrenching part of it all is we don't have any idea how many kids are losing their lives on the way from wherever they're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're even seeing some issues on this border that for whatever reason, they've lost their life in getting over the border or shortly after. I don't know how we can just sit back and ignore this, but it appears as though we are.
Yeah, it is. And people don't want to, especially the politicians, they don't want to see this part of it unless they're on, the other side of the aisle. The Republicans want to see it quite a bit now, but the Democrats don't. But had this been a different administration, then the Democrats would be out there pointing it out. And that's no way to look at it. These are people's lives. And you got to look at them as humans and not as votes. But for some reason, that's just not happening. And either these folks need to wise up and do what's right, or they need to step aside and let somebody else in there who's going to do it. And hopefully they come to their senses and get down here. And COVID or no COVID, maybe they come in a hazmat suit or something, but they need to get down here and look at it, because Zoom calls just aren't going to cut it.
Chris, I can't explain enough how much we appreciate you coming on, and hopefully Ryan and I, if you have time here in a month or so, hopefully that situation gets better. I'm not sure how it's going to, but let's hope that enough people get out and talk about the actual facts and the truth of what's going on there. I can't imagine that average person, average citizen here in the United States is going to tolerate it. And hopefully more people start speaking up and others are forced to listen. And if that's the case, maybe we can bring around some change. And next time we bring you on, I hope that's the direction we're going.
Well, I would love to be a part of it. And on the other side of that, if you guys decide you want to make a trip down here, and I'll be happy to take a couple hours out of the day and show you around and show you what we see.
Chris, I will absolutely take you up on that invitation. I think sooner than later. I don't know that Ryan is really excited about going to the border, but I'm all in on that one.
Not a problem. We'd love to have you. And whatever you guys need from me in the meantime, by all means, just shoot me a text and we'll get it done.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Wow. Ryan, I could visit with Chris for a very long time, and I know I take more personal interest and want to be educated on exactly what's going on. And I promise you, here in the next 60 days, I am going to the border, and I'm going to visit with Chris and have him take me around down there, and I want to see firsthand what's going on. Ryan, will you join us?
No, I will not.
That's simple, isn't it? They're just a no.
Well, you said in the next 60 days, and again, sir, I'm a little busy.
You can take a Tuesday, Wednesday. You can get you're
I
there.
have no Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, or Mondays in the month of June and July to do anything but judge stock shows. If you don't believe me, I will be more than happy to forward you my schedule.
I am going to find a way to get there. I could invite our producer Clifton. I don't know. I think he's a little on the busy side, and I'm plenty busy enough.
I have been to the border lots of times.
I've been there many times.
I live in the state of Texas, sir. I have been all over the border.
I have been across it many times as well, but I have not seen firsthand what's going on. But after visiting with Chris, I feel pretty comfortable on what's going on.
And if you feel like going get shot up by a drug lord, get with it. I'm all for you.
We'll see what I can accomplish on that one.
Clifton, I know you're listening. Don't go.
It's an all expense paid trip to the southern border, Clifton. What more would you ever want? I think he's going to do
it, Clifton. It's a trap.
Okay, what else do you have for us?
Well, I just want to follow up because, I'm not making fun of the border crisis. No, I don't want to get shot up, and no, I am too busy to go. But the House Republicans have sent a letter to the Biden administration just like an hour ago. This came across while this was happening, and they want the Biden administration to address the cost of this surge of people at the border. And in this letter, they reference, these are just some of the numbers that they referenced. $86 million for hotel rooms for migrants, $19 million in March alone for operating customs and border protection processing facility, and $60 million per week for unaccompanied minors.
That is a lot. And it still sounds, with all of that, we still have overcrowding to the point that I don't think we can even imagine.
This deal also says that most of the processing facilities, and I don't know what all that spans, are at 420% capacity.
And trying to slow COVID and the spread of COVID, it's the biggest mess that I think I've ever encountered.
Well, now that you bring up COVID, so whatever, I don't know if I'm going to get the second vaccination shot because I'm not going to be here, all this other stuff. But like, you bring this stuff up on Facebook, at least when I did, like people get really, really touchy on this subject. And again, I don't care what you do. It's your body, your choice, do whatever. But if you like actually look, and I guess I'm different because I've got almost like a bigger following than most people. So I get to see more posts and stuff when I'm on planes using Wi-Fi and I have nothing else to do. I think if you like take what I actually see on social media that were posted by people and then couple that with the news, I think that we're kind of where we are. And like the people that wanted vaccinated, they've done it. And the ones that haven't been probably aren't gonna.
No, and I think I can follow that. It's interesting here locally. I just was visiting with the person that here in our local area, there were 150 doses available a couple days ago. I think maybe last Friday. Only 50 people showed up to get them. There's an excess, at least in our local area right here. So I think that's going right in hand with what you're talking about, Ryan.
I know everywhere that I have been lately, just talking to local people, in at least the last month in my travels, I have not heard one time, oh, I'm on a list to get it, or we can't get it yet, or anything like that. Everything that I've heard is I've either done it or I'm not going to.
I think that's where it is. I'm not saying there aren't some people out there, and I visit with a couple people that are a little bit older and not familiar with the internet, maybe don't have a computer. Some of those people are maybe still struggling just to figure out how to do it. But I think 90% that if they want to get vaccinated in most parts of the country, I'm sure not all, at least where I'm at here in Illinois, there is no question that most people that want to get vaccinated could have done so by now or are scheduled to do so very shortly.
And I think one of the most interesting things for me is, they kind of did this by age. You had to be this certain age. Of course, they started with seniors and they went down by age, but now it's kind of like 18 and up pretty much everywhere you can. I find it funny or interesting that like the 18 to 30-year-olds, I know more of them that don't want it than almost any other age group.
They just aren't going to get it.
I guess it is because they're younger and all this other stuff. Like, they're like, what about 10 years? What if there's some god awful side effect and I can't have children, or, all this other stuff? And so I just figured that the younger people would be more willing. And I find that's the group that's absolutely the most stubborn about it. Like, no, we're not going to do it.
And I'm okay with that. I think that
I'm not against it. I just normally about big radical changes, the older you are, the more stubborn or against something you are. And this is the opposite, I guess, is what I'm saying.
No, I agree with that. And there may be a side effect from some of these vaccines, maybe all the vaccines. I can't say for certainty. I don't think anybody can, that there's not going to be some type of side effect. But we sometimes forget that there could be long-lasting issues for many that have had COVID, depending on the seriousness of COVID, and also how much of that is going to come out 10 years from now as well. I can see it on both sides. And if I take a scientific perspective to this, I'm looking at it much more from the standpoint, I think there's probably less chance of side effects from the vaccine than maybe what we're going to see from COVID long-term, especially if there's any chance that this was manipulated by China. That concerns me more than anything.
Other thing that I find fascinating is, and I hate to say that I was right again, but like, I knew that if Biden got elected, there would be no more COVID talk, and there is no more COVID talk on the news. Like, none. Like, it's just poof, gone.
No, not
just in other countries, but like, it's nothing here. And the only little bit that I've seen is that I actually saw something, I think Saturday, no, maybe Sunday, I don't know, that they're right now, if you go and look at the actual CDC data, that the blue states overwhelmingly have more that have been locked down and more, quarantined, have more cases of COVID than the red states that opened up. Actually,
it's real simple. They've simply delayed it, and it's going to find a way.
It's like you said, your herd immunity stuff.
It is there.
Done it, and there you go.
And we're building that herd immunity through vaccinations, through actual natural antibodies, through exposure. I saw something come across my phone, Ryan. West Virginia is giving out $100 bond for people to get vaccinated, trying to encourage them to get vaccinated.
I was just in West Virginia, and I'm telling you, I talked to a whole lot of people, and I don't think $100 is going to change their mind.
They're not doing it.
No.
So. And they won't let you get your second vaccine in Texas, and you'd like to. They're going to.
Yeah, I would like to. Yeah, I guess I'll go to West Virginia again. But no. But
did you hear that the Oscars have now died last night? They're dead. They're gone.
Well, and it's about time.
It is. And again, way overdue. Way overdue.
This is one of those things that people will be like, "Oh my God." I have never in my life been someone that watched award shows. And like, again, this is one of those things. You're gay. You're supposed to be all into this. Yeah, not so much. I overpriced, over ego inflated actors getting together and spending obscene amount of money on clothing to pat themselves on the back and tell themselves how they're masters of the universe is nothing that has ever interested me. And especially since Trump got elected, all award shows, even like stuff like, and like, y'all can get mad and send me hate mail. Yeah, even country music award shows have all become so politicized. And these acceptance speeches aren't, thank you, God, thank you to my wife, thank you to my husband, my family, and no, it's like, hate Trump, hate this, be this, Black Lives Matter, whatever. It's nothing about anything. So yeah, I'm personally glad. If there was never another Oscars awards ceremony, I would be fine with it. I mean, I think those people deserve recognition, but they could all go get in a little hotel ballroom like all of us do for different organizations. When you have your kids' awards banquet for FFA or something else, it's not national news. And so I don't think the Oscars are either. But
I was happy to hear
the ratings sucked.
Yeah, 10 million people last night, and they quoted back, I think in 1998, there were 55 million people watching. So I think it's over. I think it's done.
Totally fine with it if it is.
The last thing that I have to bring up, it seems to still be, it seemed like it died down for a while, but now another push to defund the police. We have the Hollywood elite that we probably heard from. I did not watch any of the Oscars, nor do I plan on going back and watching any of it. But it's the Hollywood elitists that have plenty of personal security. It's our politicians. Maxine would be one of them, along with all the others. Those that have the fence around the Capitol to protect themselves, and everybody in security positions to protect themselves are the ones calling for what, Ryan?
The defending the police people. Yeah.
I surrender. I give up.
My favorite senator, and this will not be everyone's favorite senator, but my absolute favorite senator is John Kennedy. He's the Republican from Louisiana, and I love this old man. Like, I think he's great. And so I follow all of his stuff, and so he's getting really, really out there on this defending the police stuff. And so, like, his last two statements were, if you support defunding the police, you've tested positive for stupid. And then another one was, if you don't, it was talking about if you're about supporting defunding the police, then you can call a crackhead the next time you need help.
Good point. I think it's dead on. And that, what else are you going to do? I don't know. I really don't know.
I find it hard to believe, and I know that there was a poll that came out yesterday, and I saw it come across Fox, but I didn't look at the actual numbers, that even though the liberals and AOC and all them are keeping this push for defending the police, that there was a poll that came out that said that the masses were not for that. And I should have looked.
I saw the statistics. I think it was 66% were against defunding the police.
So you actually saw the number. I never looked at the numbers.
And it was low 30s that were actually in favor of it. And I think you've got your extreme left that's in favor of it. And I don't think there's anything we're going to do that's going to change that.
No.
It shocks me that it's over 30%, but I really don't believe we're going to change their mind. We just aren't. And there's sometimes we just have to accept that. And I guess I don't give a shit what they think. They've lost their minds.
At this point in our country, I think if you can get 60% plus to agree on a topic, then that's pretty set in stone.
I think that's huge. At this point, that's
divided on everything as possible right now. So, yeah, if you can get 60%, then I'd say, yeah, that's a no-brainer. Then there's no defunding the police.
No, I'm with you, Ryan. I don't know that today's Beyond the Circus was maybe as wild, but hopefully informative for everybody. Do you have anything else you want to bring into play today, Ryan?
LeBron James is just driving me crazy. But,
I didn't. Yeah.
I don't know how far it's gone, but like I know there's been one stadium that's not going to let him play there, and I had not
heard that.
Yeah, there's one that's not going to let him play there, and it's just getting, and like he just keeps going and going and going and going, and it's just not. He's not going to shut up, but he just needs to go away. But
it may not be good for me to voice my opinion on that,
right?
And what should be done to him.
Oh, Dale, your opinion on anything, including me, is just we're going to shoot people. So
I did not say that. I don't. I know. I'm not going to voice it. I'm just going to leave it alone.
But the follow up on the interview with Chris, I can't believe that camel toe. That the best excuse they can come up with since her being appointed by our illustrious president to be the go-to person on handling the crisis at the border. The best
not the crisis, handling the situation at the
border is COVID concerns are going to keep her from being there. That's weak, people. Like,
And she is. We know she's vaccinated. We know
Right.
that she could put some PPE on. We
Right.
know she probably doesn't have to get in elbow to elbow with people. It's crap. Period.
And she hasn't had, and she was appointed this position like over 30 days ago, and she has yet to hold a press conference about it. But yeah, so that is just whatever. And then
it's exactly what I'd expect from her. Exactly.
But I do think that the other thing that is going to get interesting, and this will not die in the next week or whatever. This whole John Kerry stuff, it's going to get really hairy.
I hope it doesn't fade away.
I don't think it will.
I don't think so either, but it shocks me how the media can control the more liberal media can control the dialogue, and I'm fearful it will disappear, and I hope not.
And for those of you that don't know, like John Kerry, when he was in the Obama administration, the Iranian foreign minister has come out and said that John Kerry shared details about plans and attacks and targets and all this other stuff with him that probably wasn't supposed to do, like over 200 operations worth of details. And now he's back, and I'm assuming he was in Obama's cabinet, and now he's in Biden's cabinet. So yeah, this is going to get interesting.
I hope it gets the attention it needs.
Well, Senator Blackburn from Tennessee is all over this. Marsha, she's all about it. She is like not going to let it die. I don't think she wants him investigated the most.
Excellent. Well, Ryan, I've enjoyed today. I probably will enjoy this more than anybody out there because I am so interested in what's going on at the border and the actual
I am going to
there.
Enjoy the video footage of you getting shot by drug cartels.
I am going to the border. Period.
I'm great. That's lovely. I'm happy.
I have that much interest that I really would like to see what's going on. I feel very comfortable now that Chris has explained it well. He's right there doing it every day. I don't see any reason. He seems to be very open about whether being right or left, or it doesn't matter. He just wants the problem solved.
I find it weird, and he said this several times, that he doesn't think they're understaffed to handle the problem. They just have to be able to go out there and do their job, and they won't let them. I guess they're just keeping them in the office or whatever. They just won't
I think what he talks about babysitting. They've got so many people in custody. They have to have people there to watch over them, and they can't go out and do their job.
That's just wild. Wild.
It is. Well, we will have another Beyond the Circus at some point. We never know when they're going to come about, but we will try to do them a little more often. But we greatly appreciate Chris coming on today. Ryan, thank you very much. Until the next Beyond the Circus.
Y'all come back now, you hear?